Hi, and welcome. I'm Jessica Glass, a doctoral candidate in the Department of Exercise, Health, and Sports Sciences at Pennsylvania Western University. My research focuses on integrative and holistic health for military, their families, and really anyone because this information can benefit many. My emphasis is on non-pharmacological strategies to prevent and manage chronic musculoskeletal pain while promoting optimal physical and mental well-being through integrative and holistic approaches. So today I will be talking to Laura Wetzel, an Air Force veteran with over 6 years of service and completed a deployment to Qatar, to discuss her experiences of having and living with chronic low back pain in and outside of the military and how she has navigated her care. So thank you for your service and for joining me today.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you for your support.
Thank you. All right, so I've shared a brief discussion, but could you tell us a little bit more about your military background and experiences?
Yes, so I was an emergency manager for 6 years. So for veterans, that was the mean person who put you in chem gear. For civilians, long story short, we prepare for the worst and hope for the best. So think the equivalent to FEMA or Red Cross. So that involved an abundance of training, carrying around a lot of equipment, and just a lot of prep and prepare.
A lot of carrying, a lot of heavy stuff, it sounds
Yes.
like. Okay. All right. All right. So, I want to get into a lot more of the actual low back pain or just pain that you have endured. So, can you tell me a little bit about where your pain first started?
I wish I had a cool story to tie with this, but I really don't. I my best guess was that it's from all of that heavy, intensive training, carrying all of those equipments. Being a young airman starting out, I was not as strong as I maybe should have been to be carrying all that heavy equipment. We were doing training on a weekly basis with other entities, so I can't pinpoint one instance where it started all of a sudden.
Now, do you notice it just being low back? Do you notice it neck? Do you notice like what all ailments kind of would you like to really talk about or what
So
you've
low
had?
back is one of the biggest ones, but sometimes it radiates, or I notice if I'm compensating, if I'm sitting differently to try to relieve the lower back pain, then your shoulder hurts or your hip hurts. And it just doesn't make any sense how they're all connected, but maybe they are. I'm not sure. I'm not the expert on that. But yeah, that would be the best way to describe it. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, yeah. So actually just the other day I actually spoke with a physical therapy student and that's exactly what we were talking about is there's this misconception with service members that there had to have been a traumatic injury. There was either they got blown up or they they got into a car accident. Something had to have happened for something abrupt to occur for them to develop this injury. And now that definitely does happen. But I think a lot of people forget about just overuse injuries and just wearing heavy stuff. I mean, for example, a lot of people ruck march and, ruck marches, me being Army and Marine Corps, does the ruck marching a lot where they just carry, 80 to 100 pounds on their back and they're just walking long distances. But even just like you were mentioning, you're constantly carrying stuff. You're carrying stuff, you're having to do all these simulations, all these exercises and just constantly carrying that heavy weight on your shoulders, it's going to basically condense your low back. And it's also going to, bother your neck as well. It's going to basically crush basically, you're going to get to bone on bone. And so it's funny because I always joked when, I was like 22 years old getting out of the military and I would go to the Veterans Affairs and I'd see all these old veterans and I'm like, I'm the one young person, but when you look at our x-rays and stuff, we look exactly the same. And
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, because just being in the military, it's just the overuse injuries that our bodies are not used to. So that makes complete sense. And that's why I also wanted to talk to you is to explain this misconception. And no, I'm not the only one. This is like the main thing. So, how would you describe your experience getting the care that you needed for this injury while you were actually in service?
So in service, like you said, you don't realize how much wear and tear is on your body, and you kind of just push through it, or you don't want to say anything. The treatment plan or approach as an active duty service member was okay. Let's throw some medicine your way, pump you up with ibuprofen or some sort of pain medicine and get you back to the mission because we don't have time to, you know, pinpoint what the root cause is. Let's just juice you up and get you back to the mission. That was the active duty experience.
Yeah. Yes. And it's frustrating. I've noticed there's a shift in just the different veterans and active duty that I've talked to is there has been a shift of kind of getting away from, the opiates and the prescription pain meds. And in my time, it was more ibuprofen. But I've noticed there's a change, but that's exactly what my research foci is on, getting away from all this prescription meds, which now alone we have so much substance use with our service members and our veterans that okay, what are things that we can do to get away from that? Because now you still got the injury, but now you're hooked on these pain meds, and that alone, can really mess with your quality of living. Um,
Absolutely.
so so now I want to talk about basically the same thing. I want a little bit more of your experience, but after you got out of the military.
So I immediately enrolled in the VA healthcare system, and it was a complete difference from active duty approach treatment plan. So active duty, they wanted to get you back to the mission, however they could, the quickest way they could. VA didn't really have the same approach. You were made to feel that you weren't important enough to receive that same level of treatment or quality of care because you weren't going back to a mission. Um, and they didn't want to prescribe medication. Active duty, that's their first solution is let's prescribe something. VA was okay, let's exhaust all other efforts before we get to medication. But when you were active duty and you have been on medication for 2, 3 years, it was kind of a shock to basically start from scratch. And in retrospect, I think it's the appropriate response. Okay, let's troubleshoot, let's see what works, what doesn't before jumping to medication. But with the VA, everything's a process and it takes a long time. So I went from active duty, getting the care, getting the medication right away, feeling better, versus VA, where you had to start from ground zero. So I'm going weeks and weeks with this pain that's not being treated and it's not priority. So it would take months and months to get the ball rolling, to get into physical therapy and see if that worked or didn't work before jumping into, okay, now let's try a medication.
Yeah, I'm actually glad you brought that up. It's like while we're in service, feeling better with with pain meds or whatever is an approach to get you back out there. But then with the VA, you're like, okay, well now I'm in pain. Help me do something. And I'm kind of waiting on you guys to do it. So I see the pros and cons to both. Active duty, okay, you're kind of helping me a little bit. You're more putting a band-aid on it and you're ultimately making it worse, but at least I can feel a little bit and can kind of continue the mission. Whereas the VA is, okay, thank you. You're not pushing me with medication anymore. And we're looking at the root cause. We're getting the x-rays and the MRIs and we're figuring out what strategy we could take to, help ourselves feel better, but now in this entire process, I'm in pain. And just the process alone with getting into the VA and even getting into different community cares, finding different doctors, or even if your area where you then live at, if they even have, access to the VA hospital, or if they are going to send you out into community care, or even if you have VA. Some people don't even have that if they're not on disability, or they really just don't even know about it. So I'm sorry you had to deal with that, but at least now you kind of know. And I mean, you've been out for a couple years now. So do you actually have what do you have going on right now? Do you have a doctor? Do you have different specialists you can work with?
So I still am enrolled in the VA, but I also work full time and thankfully have private insurance through my work. So I use the VA as my primary care and try to see them for all of my service connected injuries and issues. However, sometimes I can't wait, weeks or months to get a referral to go, elsewhere to see that specialist. So that's mainly why I keep my private insurance on standby so that if I need to go see a specialist, I don't have to wait months and months and it just be in that chronic pain, because it really starts to take a toll on you physically and mentally and just, hindering that quality of life. So, yeah, I have the VA, but I also have a backup plan, so to speak.
That's good. That's good. Annoying, but but it's good to have, some kind of backup. And many people don't. And some people just say, "I'm not waiting for this." I hear so many veterans say it takes forever, and or I can't even get in, especially the older crowd. So having that is good to hear. So with this process, kind of what we're talking about with having the private insurance, also working with the VA. Um, for your daily living, have you developed any like routines, strategies, or anything that just helps the pain more manageable?
I definitely try to get up and walk, get away from the desk. Thankfully, I work with a great organization that they provide a standing desk, because we've complained that we're sedentary for so long and it's hard to get away from the job. So, getting up, walking around, standing, trying to do some stretches in the morning before I start my day or at night. Even though I don't like doing it, I try to foam roll here and there, but just trying to be proactive instead of reactive.
Yeah, so with a lot of my research, many researchers have agreed that sedentary behaviors is one of the biggest things that can increase your pain intensities. And so it's like a never-ending cycle. It's okay, I'm in pain. I don't want to do anything. Well, now that I'm not doing anything, now I'm going to be in more pain because I'm not doing anything, but I really don't have the energy to do anything about it. So
Yeah.
it's really you have to be proactive. You have to get up and do something. And I notice with a lot of veterans or just people dealing with chronic pain is we're always on our phone or the job that we do, we're sitting down because we don't want to be in an active job because we think, oh, we're in pain. I want to sit down. But now we're sitting for 8 hours a day. Then we go home and we go watch TV or we do something that we're just sitting down and then we play on our phone all the time. And again, the other day when I was talking to the physical therapy student, that's exactly what we were talking about is you need some type of like stand-up chair, or you need something to just help with that, or even just simple reminders of when you're texting, try to keep your head up, stop looking down. That's, that alone also creates our neck issues. So, have you noticed that trying to make these different changes and trying to see if something's manageable, do you wait for you to feel the pain and then say, oh, there's my cue, I need to get up? Or do you like have a timer, or is there something you do to try to be proactive?
Sometimes I procrastinate, sometimes I'm proactive. Um, Recently, in the past few months, I've tried to make it a habit at work. When I go to the bathroom, take a little bathroom break, I'll just go ahead and step outside the building and take just one lap. Go out one door, come through the other, and it takes less than 5 minutes, just to get a little more stretching in the steps in. I try not to wait until I'm in agonizing pain, but it's a constant maintenance. It's since it's a chronic pain, it's not gonna go away overnight. So I try to do my stretches or not get to the point where I'm unable to move my neck or my back.
Yeah, and going back with if you can get into some type of specialist, is there any outside specialist that you see? For example, massage therapy, or do you go and like aside from x-rays and stuff, do you see a pain management doctor? When you try to reach out to get help, what specialist do you actually look for?
I have used massage therapy, as some sort of relief, especially when I was active duty. When I was active duty, the pain was so bad. I was doing physical therapy every other week. So on the off weeks of physical therapy, I was getting massages, and that was just to maintain and get through. Now that I am out, I'll get massages every now and then, but in this economy, things are pricey, and so are massages. So I try to do things on my own, like to do those stretching, on my own and not have to pay $100 plus. I have done some physical therapy sessions and then taken what they've given me and just using those on a day-to-day basis.
Well, good. I'm glad that you are able to at least find something, rather than just I'm going to be sedentary, not do anything, and just hope it goes away, or even, take pain medication. So have you noticed? I know you mentioned previously about just also taking a toll on your mental health. Have you noticed any changes with affecting your stress levels, your moods, just your overall outlook because of your chronic pain?
Yes, I think it's had a great impact on my mental well-being in good and bad ways. I think the biggest takeaway or the key difference is when I was active duty, I didn't have the knowledge I have now to take this pain and these things and turn it into positive habits instead of just sulking and just I think being in chronic pain all the time, it takes a toll on you mentally, and you think, okay, this is never going to go away. It's never going to get better, and you start to believe it and you feel it. But just the positive ways, thinking, okay, this is temporary. If I do these stretches, I'll feel better. Just speaking it into existence first that this is not a way of living. That this pain can be improved. It's not the end all be all, if that makes sense.
It does. And actually, I know a lot of people, when they think of veterans, they think of, PTSD and, anxiety, depression, all of these mental health issues. And you'll notice a lot of it aligns with just the general population, everybody else. And now we're starting to see these mental health hotlines that we can call, and even, suicide prevention hotlines, and that is a big issue, with military, with veterans, and really just everybody, honestly. Um, and that's why I am so focused on one, our military population, active duty veterans, even their spouses, dependents, everyone. But trying to pull away from, pushing prescription, because that alone can also cause substance abuse, substance use, and even get to, so, actually, uh, performing suicide. But trying to find more of a holistic approach. Let's get away from medicine. Let's look at the overall body, because I actually, the other day, I spoke to, she's not retired, but a director that worked on a Quantico military, or I'm sorry, a Marine Corps base actually at Quantico in Virginia. And that's what she said, is even though her main job was to look at what health promotion programs that we could bring to our active duty service members, she said we also need to look at the whole individual. And that's exactly what I'm trying to do. Look at everything. Realize that your mind and body, they work together. And just with understanding how pain works, getting educated on how pain functions in your body, and then what are some things you can do. And everybody is different. So trying different things, trying massage therapy that works for some, it may not. And just like you said, when you were active duty, it was religious. You did it all the time, and that was good. I'm glad that you had access to that. And especially when you need it, because they give you the medicine, they expect you to complete the mission. So you made a religious, strategy of correcting that. But now that you're a veteran and you don't have either you're not trying to create that financial burden, or even just you don't need it as much as you did when you were active duty, still trying to find something. And so you being proactive, you using the stand-up chairs, just making those little habits of just walking around. I'm trying to speak to people and to see what works so then I can supply that to everybody. So I hate that you have to deal with that. But that's what a lot of people end up doing when they get this chronic pain. They have an injury that then just develops into chronic pain, and now everything just kind of has a domino effect. So is there anything that you wish that people better understood about living with chronic pain?
I think you touched on it a little bit, and that's how sometimes people don't realize how the mind and body work together. So when I was active duty, I didn't understand how those two were connected in any way. I was just in so much pain, so all I could think was negative, and all I could think was pain. And so, yeah, if the situation was not so great, you didn't feel so great. Versus now being educated and growing as a person, and just educating myself, being educated by medical professionals, is how the two do work and what can we do, what do we have control over. We may not always have control over our physical pain, but it starts in the mind. And if we can kind of start with at least that there's hope that things could get better or that we can make improvements, I think can that alone makes a big difference. So just having that hope and making that strategic, like mindfulness effort to do your stretches before your pain gets bad.
And actually, you mentioned this earlier, but aside being proactive is it's constant maintenance, just constantly reminding yourself. And that alone can sound kind of negative as, oh my gosh, I'm always going to have this. I need to do something. But chronic pain is really just pain that lasts more than 3 months. And, just life in general. For example, I have, I've given birth to 2 kids, and just going from, having chronic pain, and then now I'm pregnant, I'm overweight, I'm gaining all this weight, my hips go wide. Then I felt like a new kind of pain. So I still had pain, but then a new kind of pain, you lose all the weight. Okay, let me pop out another kid. So also just in life in general, you have all these different transitions of, just life. And then you're going to have pain in a different way. So I think just teaching ourselves that, okay, it's okay, but what can we do to at least help our quality of life? Try to make it a little bit better. So on a daily basis, we don't just have to deal with it all the time. So are there any final words or advice that you would like to leave with our listeners?
Yes, definitely. Be kind to yourself. Like you said, our body goes through different changes as we go through life. So it's okay, give yourself a little bit of grace, be kind to yourself, but most importantly, take care of yourself. Active duty, veteran, civilian. Um, One thing I was told when I was active duty was that we have two name tapes on our uniform. We have the branch and then we have our name. You take care of one, takes care of the other. And I've always kept that mentality, even in the civilian world. You take care of your job. You work so hard. Sometimes they take care of you, sometimes they don't. At the end of the day, just take care of yourself so you can take care of everything else. But if you don't take care of yourself first, then everything else won't fall into place. So be kind to yourself and take care of yourself.
It's to be my new motto. Be kind to yourself.
Yes.
Like you are all you got. So, you know, figure it out, figure out what works for you, educate yourself, and just it's okay. We will figure this out, I promise.
Yes. Yes.
All right, well, it's been such a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you for your time and for your service, for sharing your experiences with our audience.
Thank you.
So for the articles that I have mentioned in this episode, I've included reference materials in the notes. If you have any further questions or comments, please feel free to contact me, and I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your time and your attention.